In the beginning of this month, a community member in my Discord posted a very suspicious screenshot from the Steam database website, SteamDB, for the very flagship game of my channel, Civilization 6. Now, I'm not the first one to make a video on this. If you haven't watched it, go watch the Saxy Gamer's video. He made a very brief outline of what more or less this part of SteamDB could be. However, I am going to go a little bit more in depth on that and expand upon it and maybe add a little additional speculation and answers to the questions that he had in that video. Now, this screenshot included two new app IDs in the downloadable content section under app ID 2173130 and 3131 with the names of Test LPGN and Test LPJ. The last time that there were things like this added to the DLC section of Sid Meier's Civilization 6 on SteamDB, it was, you guess it, the New Frontier Pass. Now, let the speculation begin. Initial speculation might indicate an actual DLC for the game. That's kind of what Saxy talked about, just because of previously there had been the same instances happening with previous DLCs with different code names, and they would put out these app depots under the DLC section on steam.db. But with the anthology being released and Civ literally saying that Civ is done, I would like to safely think that a brand new Civ 6 DLC along the lines of a Gathering Storm is probably out of the equation. Even my most optimistic Civ-pilled brain does not think that there's a new DLC coming out for Civ 6. And as far as I understand, Firaxis is fully working on Midnight Suns and whatever the next Civ iteration is going to be. Now, in my mind at least, I have 100% confidence that there's no more actual gameplay DLCs for Civ 6. Now that I've said that, there's probably going to be one. Watch. My two main speculations that I want to point out for this video are what I think the actual things are going to be behind these DLC depot apps, and why I think at least the final one for me makes the most sense and is probably the actual thing being released. Now, the first idea, and I've also seen this in the Civ Fanatic forum, is that this is going to be new modding tools and the final DLLs that Firaxis is releasing for the modding community. Now, the main complaint amongst Civ modders, and I know quite a few of them, is that unlike previous Civ games, the source DLL has not been released to the modding community, which leads to a lot of really awful restrictions to modding Civilization 6. There's a reason why Civ 5 still has an incredibly strong modding community behind it, and it's because of things like this. Even back in 2020, around the time of the announcement of the New Frontier Pass, there were still no plans on releasing the source DLLs from Civ 6, even coming from words of the previous lead designer, Anton himself. Now, honestly, it really sucks, but I don't think that they're going to release the source DLL. There are just too many things that are going to be transferred gameplay-wise from Civ 6 to the next iteration of Civ that at least from what I'm guessing, that are too valuable in Firaxis' mind to be released to the public, especially with games like Humankind starting to pick up steam with their new expansion coming out, and then just more 4X and grand strategy games in general being developed. For example, the new game Ara that is coming out that has previous Civ devs on them. The second, and for me, what I think is the most likely scenario of what these unknown apps are a final patch and patch notes in the form of a game pack, or another release similar to the anthology, like maybe an anniversary edition or a Game of the Year edition. Forgive my reasoning, you may initially think that I'm some sort of crazy Civ player who's looking just for like the smallest crumb or morsel of information from Firaxis in regards to Civ, but I promise this isn't Pepe Sylvia. Now, it has been about a few days since it's been scraped from the SteamDB website and it hasn't been updated in a few days, but the name of these two depots are Test LPJ and Test LPGN, which, just by guessing, I'm assuming is them testing out whatever thing they're going to be putting out there. Now, if this was just a small patch that changed values and things along those lines, I don't think it would be presented as a full DLC and it would just show up as patch notes on the QA branch side of things. A good example is by looking at the previous 2K launcher updates. The main reasoning why I'm thinking this is a final patch update is a few things. We only discovered this as recently as Saturday the 1st, this was first posted on the Civ Fanatics forum. Now, on the 2nd, as I had mentioned previously, my community had brought it up in my Discord, but as far as I can tell, it seems like this was actually scraped by SteamDB as early as a full week earlier on the 27th. If you go to the patch notes section of SteamDB, there will reveal two updates to depots that were previously released, stated as quote-unquote Madrid content, and in both of these denoted by change depots in 2KQA branch. Now, going down the patches in this section, you'll notice that they are all literally 2K launcher updates that are affiliated with different 2K games, for example, BioShock, XCOM, etc. But these two newest ones are specifically for Civ 6, and they're not for the update. and the depots of these are for the entire game and all of its DLCs that have been released. Now, as far as I know, the last time they did this was during the build-up and release of the Civ 6 anthology, see this thread here. But you'll also notice that the same word Madrid keeps popping up over and over again. Now, at first there was some speculation maybe it's just some fixes to translations and things along those lines, but if you go down and look through the whole Civ 6 SteamDB, you'll notice that this was more than likely just a placeholder / codename used for the New Frontier Pass, as it's used over and over again, even for localizations in other languages. Now, specifically, the main reason why these are not 2K launcher updates inside of this DLC section is because if you look at the launcher updates, they are specifically stated launcher update, patch, launcher update, update, and you'll see exactly what it is for, and you can just tell that these are specifically launcher updates, and they're showed up in the patch section of the 2K Civilization updates here. These, with what we have specifically, are in the DLC section, which is why we're all speculating it is something along these lines. Now, my personal hope is that this is a final patch for Civilization 6 that kind of comes out of nowhere, fixes a bunch of bugs and random things along those lines, and that this isn't a new edition pack like a Civ 6 Anthology or a Game of the Year edition. Because if it is a final patch based off of the history with Firaxis, that would mean that Civ 7, or whatever the next iteration of Civ is on the way. If you go back to Civilization 4, anytime there was an announcement for a new Civ game, just before the announcement happened, a random big patch would be released, and that would get everyone's attention, and everyone would start talking about Civilization again. Additionally, Firaxis releases a main Civ game every 5 to 6 years. Civ 5 was released 5 years after Civ 4, Civ 6 was released 6 years after Civ 6, and we are just about 2 weeks away from Civ 6 officially being 6 years old. Now, could all of this just be a nothing burger? I mean, absolutely. This could just literally be an update to the game that's going to be silently released that maybe just optimizes it a little bit more. Who knows? But what's the fun of speculating if not for making up imaginary scenarios based off of bots scraping Steam's databases for possible DLC and future releases? I think we're all very hungry for new Civilization news. We've played Humankind, we know that Ara's coming out, but we're all just fanatics for Civilization, so any little crumb that we can get, we're just clamoring for. Regardless, you can find all of the links that I gathered from this information in the description below. And what do you all think? Is this a big old pile of nothing and just some testing around internally? Am I completely wrong and there's a brand new DLC coming, maybe like a leader pack? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts. Last of all, if you enjoyed the video, enjoy the channel, please subscribe. It means a lot. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!